The Byzantine Arab Wars. 500 years at the edge of the world. For centuries, the border between Byzantium and Islam was not a line. It was a wound that never healed. From 629 to 1180 AD, the Byzantine Empire, the last remnant of Rome, and the rising Arab Caliphates fought a war that lasted nearly 500 years. It was a struggle of faiths, empires, and survival. From the deserts of Arabia to the walls of Constantinople, this war reshaped the medieval world and forged the map of civilizations that still exists today. This is the story of the Byzantine Arab Wars, the longest war in medieval history. Chapter 1. The End of an Era, 610–629 AD. In the early 7th century, the Eastern Roman, or Byzantine Empire, stood bloodied but alive. It had just survived a brutal 26-year war against the Persian Sassanids, a conflict so devastating that both empires nearly collapsed. Cities lay in ruins, treasuries were empty, and soldiers were exhausted. The Byzantines, under Emperor Heraclius, had only just restored Jerusalem and recovered the True Cross after defeating Persia in 628. But even as they celebrated, a new force was rising in the deserts to the south, a force that would change everything. In 632 AD, Muhammad ibn Abdullah, the prophet of Islam, died, leaving behind a united Arabia and a new faith that inspired its followers with divine purpose. His successors, the caliphs, inherited not just a religion, but a mission: to spread the message of Islam beyond Arabia. The Byzantine and Persian empires, once the masters of the world, suddenly found themselves facing a third power, one young, united, and burning with conviction. Chapter 2. The First Invasions, 633–641 AD. Within a year of the prophet's death, Arab armies burst forth from the desert. They were lightly armed, but fiercely motivated, led by generals like Khalid ibn al-Walid, the Sword of God. They moved with stunning speed, raiding, encircling, and destroying entire armies before the enemy even understood their tactics. The Battle of Yarmouk, 636 AD. In 636 AD, the fate of the Byzantine East was decided. Emperor Heraclius sent a massive army to meet the Muslims on the banks of the Yarmouk River, near the modern Golan Heights. For 6 days, under burning desert winds, the two sides clashed. The Byzantines outnumbered the Arabs, perhaps 2-to-1, but they were fighting far from home, their morale shattered after years of war. Khalid's cavalry swept through the Byzantine lines like a storm. In a final, devastating maneuver, he encircled the enemy army and drove them toward the cliffs overlooking the river. Thousands were cut down or thrown into the ravine below. The Byzantine army ceased to exist. Heraclius, retreating to Antioch, is said to have looked back toward Syria and whispered, "Farewell, a long farewell to Syria, my fair province. You are lost to the empire." Syria, the heart of the Byzantine East, was gone. And soon, so were Palestine and Egypt. Chapter 3. The Fall of Egypt and the Holy Land, 641–650 AD. After Yarmouk, the Muslim armies advanced with unstoppable momentum. In 637, they entered Jerusalem. The city surrendered peacefully to Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab, who personally came to receive it. Unlike the Persians or Crusaders, who would come centuries later, the Muslims spared the city. Umar refused to pray in the church of the Holy Sepulchre, fearing it might one day be turned into a mosque. Instead, he prayed outside, and there, the Mosque of Umar still stands today. In 641 AD, the Byzantine stronghold of Alexandria fell to the Muslims under Amr ibn al-As. With that, Egypt, Rome's grain basket for 700 years, was lost forever. In less than a decade, the Byzantine Empire had lost its richest and most ancient provinces. And yet, the empire did not fall. It retreated, like a wounded lion, to the mountains of Anatolia, preparing for a long fight. Chapter 4. The Desert Frontier. A New World of War, 650–717 AD. For the next 2 centuries, the border between Byzantium and the Caliphates became the most dangerous frontier on earth. A vast, desolate stretch of mountains, deserts, and fortresses stretching from the Taurus Range in southern Turkey to the Cilician Gates, a narrow pass that armies would cross for centuries. The raids and counter-raids. Every summer, Arab armies rode north into Byzantine lands in great Sawa'if. Seasonal raids meant to test the enemy and gather loot. Every winter, Byzantine armies rode south in retaliation, burning Arab outposts and freeing captives. Cities like Tarsus, Melitene, and Germanicaea became the beating heart of this endless war, rebuilt and destroyed dozens of times. In the east, the Arabs conquered Armenia and Cilicia, while in the west, the Byzantine navy clung desperately to the Mediterranean, using Greek fire, a terrifying incendiary weapon that could burn even on water. But the greatest test was yet to come: the battle for Constantinople itself. Chapter 5. The First Siege of Constantinople, 674–678 AD. By the mid-7th century, the Umayyad Caliphate had replaced the early Rashidun ruling from Damascus, once a Byzantine city. Caliph Muawiyah I, ambitious and shrewd, sought to capture the jewel of the world, Constantinople, the city of Caesar and Christ. For 4 years, Arab fleets and armies besieged the Byzantine capital. They camped along the Sea of Marmara, raiding and blockading the city each summer. But Constantinople was unlike any other city on earth, ringed by triple walls, defended by the greatest navy of its age. In 678, the Byzantines unleashed their secret weapon, Greek fire, a mixture of oil, sulfur, and unknown chemicals. It spewed from bronze tubes, igniting Arab ships instantly. The sea itself burned. The siege collapsed. The Arab fleet retreated in chaos, losing thousands. It was the first major defeat of the Caliphate, and it saved Europe. Muawiyah signed a peace treaty with Byzantium, and for a brief moment, the world exhaled. Chapter 6. The Second Siege, 717–718 AD. But peace never lasted long. In 717 AD, the new Umayyad Caliph Sulayman launched a second invasion, even greater than the first. Over 100,000 soldiers and 1,800 ships surrounded Constantinople, commanded by his brother Maslama. Inside the walls stood the Byzantine Emperor, Leo III, the Isaurian, a soldier of humble birth, but a master of defense. The siege began in September. The Byzantines again unleashed Greek fire, burning half the Arab fleet. The winter that followed was one of the coldest in memory. The Arab army, unprepared for the snow, starved in the frozen camps. Disease spread, supplies ran out, and by the time reinforcements arrived from Syria, the Byzantine navy annihilated them in a night ambush. By August 718, only a handful of survivors limped home to Damascus. Maslama's great army had been destroyed. The siege of Constantinople failed again, and Europe was saved a second time. Chapter 7. Stalemate and Survival, 750–900 AD. In 750 AD, the Abbasid Revolution overthrew the Umayyads, moving the capital of Islam east to Baghdad. The focus shifted away from conquest and toward administration, science, and trade. The Abbasids still raided Byzantium, but the dream of conquering Constantinople had faded. Byzantium, meanwhile, adapted to survive. The empire reorganized into themes: military provinces led by generals who could mobilize local troops instantly. Farmers became soldiers. Cities became fortresses. The empire was smaller, but harder than ever before. From the 8th to the 10th centuries, the borderlands between Byzantium and Islam became a deadly chessboard. Small towns were sacked, rebuilt, and sacked again. Captives were traded in frontier markets. Spies crossed mountains at night. It was a world without peace, but also without total war. Chapter 8. The Counterattack, 900–1025 AD. By the 10th century, the balance of power began to shift. The Abbasid Caliphate weakened, fractured by internal revolts and regional dynasties. The Byzantines, under the Macedonian dynasty, grew strong once again. Under Emperor Nikephoros II, Phocas, and John Tzimiskes, Byzantine armies recaptured Crete, Cyprus, and Antioch, cities that had been lost for centuries. The empire pushed deep into Syria, even threatening Aleppo and Damascus. For the first time in 300 years, the Byzantines went on the offensive. In Constantinople, people whispered that the Empire of Christ might rise again. Church bells rang in triumph, but the moment of glory would not last. Chapter 9. The Coming of New Enemies, 11th to 12th centuries. The world changed again. From the steppes of Central Asia came new warriors, the Seljuk Turks, converts to Islam, who swept through Persia and into Anatolia. They were fast, ruthless, and unlike the Arabs, they didn't stop at the old frontier. In 1071, at the Battle of Manzikert, the Byzantine army was crushed. Emperor Romanus IV Diogenes was captured by the Seljuks. In a single generation, nearly all of Asia Minor, the empire's heartland, was lost. It was the most catastrophic defeat since Yarmouk. And once again, Constantinople stood as the last bulwark between Islam and Europe. Desperate, the Byzantines called for help, and the Crusades began. Ironically, the Christian soldiers who came to save Byzantium would later plunder it themselves. By 1204, Constantinople fell, not to Muslims, but to fellow Christians. The 500-year Byzantine-Arab conflict had evolved, expanded, and consumed everything in its path. Chapter 10. The Legacy of a 500-year War. The Byzantine-Arab Wars were not just a clash of armies. They were a clash of civilizations. For 5 centuries, Byzantium stood as a wall between East and West, between Christianity and Islam. The border that ran through Anatolia and Syria became the fault line of the medieval world, and remains in many ways the fault line of civilization today. The Arabs brought a new world, one of language, science, and faith. The Byzantines preserved the memory of Rome, law, philosophy, and art. Between them, they kept the ancient world alive in different forms. Their war birthed centuries of exchange, of culture, trade, and even mutual respect amid hostility. The Byzantines learned Arabic medicine and mathematics. The Arabs learned Greek philosophy and architecture. What began in blood ended in the creation of a new, shared world. By 1180, the old war between Byzantium and the Arabs was dying, replaced by new powers: the Crusaders, the Turks, and soon, the Mongols. But its echoes lingered in every stone fortress, every ruined church, and every Arabic manuscript copied from Greek texts. The war that began with Heraclius and the caliphs ended not with victory, but with transformation. For 500 years, the crescent and the cross stared across the desert, each certain it carried the truth of the world. The war between Byzantium and Islam was not won by either, but inherited by both. In their conflict, they forged the Middle Ages, and from their ashes rose the modern world.